As the computer industry moved from the late 1980s into the 1990s, the CD-ROM became one of the most important pieces of equipment for modern computers. And a lot of companies were fighting over technologies to bring CD-ROM into the home. One of those companies was Philips, and they brought in what was called the CD Interactive System. We're going to cover the CDI today on Vintage Geek. Just a reminder, if you like vintage technology, vintage computers, video game systems, and more, be sure to like and subscribe. It's going to help us a lot as we grow. In the late 1980s, the CD-ROM was all the buzz in the computer industry. Everyone wanted to put a CD-ROM into a PC, and a lot of companies did it with great success. But some other companies were looking for a way to bring the CD technology into the home in a way that wasn't quite the personal computer and a little bit less of a price point. And that's where Philips came into play. Philips, along with Sony, came out with a new version called CDI, or CD Interactive. And basically it was a format specification that determined how data would be laid out on the disk. It had a little bit more capacity than a normal CD-ROM at the time and could do some really interesting things on a home entertainment type system. Philips developed the CDI Interactive System for the home in about 1992. Their first system was the CDI 910, which we have here today. The interesting part about this technology is that this got into the realm of, is it a computer? Is it a video game system? They called it at first a home multimedia system, which I guess would be kind of accurate. They got into a lot of the edutainment type titles where they were taking people on tours in museums and doing other things with the CD technology, which also brought video to the CD. And this is where things got a little bit weird, because early full motion video on CD was kind of an interesting format, and we've seen this done with other systems like the 3DO multiplayer from Panasonic and some others later down the road, but Philips was kind of one of the first companies to do this. Unfortunately, in order to play actual video CD, you had to buy a $200 add-on for the deck, which we do not have in our unit here. But it can play most of the CDI titles that were available at the time. Now, as far as the hardware of this unit, it looks kind of like a general CD player, although I will say it's a lot beefier. This thing is pretty heavy, and it's comparable in size to a full-size Laserdisc player of the time, so it took up quite a bit of real estate in your home entertainment center. It's got a CD drawer here, which would be pretty standard for any system. Power button, it's got a headphone jack, it's got a volume control for that. You've got an open and close button for the tray, which is obviously pretty self-explanatory. There's an LCD display on this that would be similar to CD players and so forth at the time, so not really a computer display, but it's going to give you some general information about the track that's playing and what kind of CD you have in the system. And then you've got your transport controls over here. You can play, stop, reverse, and forward. That would be for your more traditional CD or playing an audio CD. This system also had controllers. We don't have any of the wired controllers that were more of the game type controllers. What we do have is the remote control, which has a joystick-like function on it. This is more like a standard television remote, so you point it at the unit and it uses infrared technology. But it does have a joystick that moves in 4 directions, as is apparently common with most of these units. Ours is missing the actual nub on top of the joystick, but it still functions. There's 4 function keys around the joystick, and then you have some basic transport controls that you could use for playing video CDs or music CDs at the bottom. So it's a pretty basic arrangement. As for the back of the CDI, it has some pretty standard connectors and functionality. You've got your power port, you've got a connector here for an input, which I believe was for the wired controllers. The RF out and RF in, this is for your standard television hookup, so you could connect it just like a component in your home stereo. And you also had your standard video out, audio out. And you can also see this giant expansion socket here, which is just a filler plate on our unit. This is where you would put the digital video cartridge add-on. Now, as for the unit itself, this was the first consumer unit that Philips put out. The price point on this was about $1,000 at the time, which seems very expensive, but if you looked at the time to buy an actual PC with a CD-ROM in it, you would have been looking at probably double that. This was an economic option for someone that wanted to get into CD technology and have that capability in their home and in their home entertainment system. This system over the years has been panned by video game magazines, PC magazines, as kind of one of the worst video game systems, but I don't know if that's really fair, because it's not exactly a video game system. It was designed for home interactive purposes. It's a weird hybrid model, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But I did want to mention a couple of other interesting facts about this system. First of all, inside it uses a 68,000 Motorola processor. You might recognize that from many of the other systems that we've covered here on Vintage Geek, most notably the Color Computer series. They also use the 68,000 processor, and this was a much later incarnation of that technology. Some people complain about it because at that time it seemed like it was already out of date, which was kind of true. But the operating system that actually runs internally on the Philips CDI is a version of OS 9, which which is the same operating system that was used for later titles in the Color Computer 2 and the Color Computer 3, designed by Microware. So it's interesting to see how these different technologies evolved over time and how they were used in different pieces of equipment. I do have to mention very quickly that this particular CDI unit we obtained off of eBay. The only problem was when we got it, it was not functioning. The actual transport for the CD was not spinning. It looks like something may have happened in shipping. I followed some instructions online to get that unstuck, but unfortunately that still didn't work. We were having some disk read errors. Some disks would play, some disks wouldn't. So I read online you could actually get a replacement for the laser assembly by buying a Kodak photo CD unit of a certain type that came out in the same time period. Apparently they use the same manufacturer and supplier, so they are directly interchangeable, which was super helpful because getting a new replacement for that laser unit was pretty much impossible on the budget that we had. So for about 30 bucks, I got a donor unit and was able to swap out that laser assembly, and we have a fully functional CDI now. As well as getting the tray to work, which also didn't work, was able to swap out the belt from the Kodak unit. Things are working pretty well now, and we're ready to give this a try here on Vintage Geek. Using a Commodore monitor today because it had composite inputs and it's got a great picture. Wanted to mention very quickly also, there is some local tie-in to the Philips CDI. Even though it was manufactured in Germany, the support for the CDI system came from their US headquarters, which was actually located in Knoxville, out in the Strawberry Plains area. That area is now the Pellissippi State Community College campus after it was sold by Philips in the 1990s. Kind of an interesting local tie-in for the Philips story here. Let's see what happens when we turn on this unit. It comes right up to the compact disc interactive Philips screen here. There are some basic options on the screen before you even put a disc in. You've got your memory option. Now there was some built-in memory in the deck itself. Unfortunately, it was battery backed up, and I'm sure that the battery is dead on this, so if I go to memory, there's not going to be anything there. There's a grid you can see where the files would be stored. Also, you can dim the screen. It will do this after amount of time on its own, but it's kind of like a screensaver. There's a settings menu where you can set the clock. Again, this is battery backed up with the real-time clock. You can set up your shuffle options for playing audio discs and things like that. And then you've got your info tab. If you want information on a particular feature, select from the list on the right, and it's just kind of a nice little on-screen help guide. So let's get into the actual software for the Philips CDI. Now this one's called Mystic Midway Rest in Pieces. Somewhere between heaven and earth stands the Mystic Midway. Its live-action master of cemeteries, the humorously insulting Dr. Darth, welcomes you to his shooting gallery. Fire away at ghosts, ghouls, and all the things that go bump in the night. It's so frightfully fun you might never return. This is going to be a great example showing this kind of hybrid between full motion video and gaming. It gets a little bit weird very quickly. Let's give this a shot. Mystic Midway. When you insert the disc, it brings up the Play CDI option. American Interactive Media, owned by Philips.
Hurry, hurry, step right up, that's it. Come a little closer. Carney World, you're mine. It's showtime.
The acting is fantastic so far. The combination of having that full motion video is really funny. Looks like level 1 is 200 points to get to the next level. Now we've got different items with different point values here, and you don't want to shoot the headstones because you don't get any points for them. Let's see what happens here. I got one. I do appreciate the sound effects.
Hey, buddy!
Did that skull just talk to me? I think I made the requirement. I passed 200 points.
Ooh, boy, your score's really spooking me out.
Now we got some different characters for the next level. I will say one of the complaints from people about the system were the controllers, which does make sense because it's all infrared. It's a little bit of lag. Not bad though. Honestly, I would have expected it to be worse.
Ghoulish shooting there, bun brains. See if you can hit something next time.
Oh wow, throwing some shade now. This is pretty fun. I love the little interactivity with the sound effects and the different things that the skull heads do. The video quality is nice. I'm sure this would look good on your home television set back in the 90s. They're obviously taking advantage of the video capability to have the presenter and the host and kind of the funny bits. Fun game and a good offering here for the Philips CDI. Now back when we did our 3-part series on the Coleco Atom, we talked about one of the games that was actually one of my favorite Atom games, which was the Richard Scarry game, and it looks like the next installment in that series was actually done for the Philips CDI. So I'm kind of curious to see how that translates into this later generation. Like the music so far?
This neighborhood is called Busytown, one of the busiest places you've ever seen. And remember to stay very busy in Busytown.
I'm gonna stay super busy. Okay, so they have a little star that moves around. It's kind of like a mouse cursor. Let's go to the radio station first. I have to assume that's what this is. There's a tower on top of it. Oh, it's a TV station. Oh, so it's just kind of moving around. If I click here. That's pretty cool.
Here we are at the eyes and ears of Busytown. Television station ZBSY. Z Busy.
Oh, and you can just click on everything in here.
A little higher. No, a little lower. No, a little higher.
Most weather forecasters tell you what the weather is like, but at ZBSY, you decide.
Oh, sweet.
Just move your star to the clothes you'd like to wear and press an action button.
Well, I'm a summer kind of person, so let's go ahead and pick these shorts.
It's going to be hot and sunny at the beach today.
Yes.
Oh, shark! Hi, kids.
Honestly, this game has a lot more depth than I would have anticipated, and it looks fantastic. I mean, this just feels like walking into one of the books. Wait a minute. Is this the Simpsons house? I would honestly say that even though this is a game for kids, I'm probably going to go back and play this just to see what the other things are and the houses and buildings. It's very cool, and it's really fun to kind of navigate with the Philips CDI system. I'm guessing this is just an exploration game. I think that you can just run around and look at everything and get into the details, which for someone, a young person especially, would be really cool if you've read the books and you've looked through it just to be able to kind of uncover things in an interactive way. Well done on this one. Next up, we have the Palm Springs Open. I'm not a sports person, as you might guess, and I'm certainly not an athletic person, but I do enjoy an occasional golf game for a computer or a game system. And recently I had the opportunity to actually play real golf, and it didn't go so well.
Bend your knees.
But this game looks interesting. Really curious to see what this game has to offer. The soundtrack is killer. Let's just start the game. There's no need for practice here, right? Mission Hills Palmer course.
This hole's 350 yards, par 4, with a blind green.
So it looks like we can pick the club, we can look at the map. I assume that we're the flashing X on the left of the screen here. That looks like it's the T point. And then the green must be all the way to the right.
Golf's a mental game, isn't it?
Yeah, quick trip to the nut house, if that's what you mean.
So far, the commentary is fantastic. I assume it's got some kind of power bar, and then you angle it accordingly. Let's see what happens when we press the action button. That didn't go well.
Rolling down the fairway.
Well, you know what? I made it on the fairway. I guess I can't complain. What happens if I mess up really bad? Whoa.
And it's up and onto the green.
He's away from the pin.
I love the reaction shot showing the guy in the top right-hand corner. That's fantastic.
You better keep an eye on the wind.
I don't think the wind is my biggest concern, I'm going to be honest. All right, so here's our club selection. Definitely just want to do one of the wedges, I'm guessing. Now, putting, I don't think it's going to give me an actual... I probably don't have to pick the first bar. It's probably just going to be based on power alone, I'm guessing.
How do you deal with the jitters when you putt?
Oh, I just try to hit it and get it over with.
Oh, come on. Ah.
Short isn't always sweet.
What separates the good putters from the great ones?
The great ones don't miss as often, mate.
Yes, plus 18 right out of the gate. This is a phenomenal golf game. Honestly though, I have to say that it's a really novel game for the time. Just combining the real graphics of real imagery and having the golf mechanic behind it. It's fun, and I love the fact that they got all the commentary for it. It really does make it a more interactive experience. Without it, I think it would be pretty dull, but probably still better than my actual golf game. Finally, for our game sampling today of the Philips CDI, I've got a game that has a celebrity guest appearance, and it's also golf related. It's the Wacky World of Miniature Golf with Eugene Levy. Miniature golf is given a new wacky dimension as it's made even more miniature and put on a compact disc. At last, the perfect date disc, the family fun disc, the kids with their friends over for the afternoon disc. It slices, it dices, your golf ball that is, as you attempt to get through 18 of the world's trickiest holes. This sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. Philips Sidewalk Studio.
Ah, the good old days, when miniature golf was a quaint but risky pastime. And this is now. Hey, greetings, putters. I'm Rollo the Goofball. Golf ball. And I'll be your guide. Sign in for a new game.
All right, let's start a new game. I'm just gonna do one player. Who do we want to play miniature golf? Let's see. Let's go with him.
Looks like there's no carts, so start walking. But don't mess with my bike hole. Hey, man, what are you doing on my street?
So it looks like you can go left, you can go right, or you can go straight, and then you just kind of have to time it, I'm guessing. Oh, so far I'm really impressed with the animations and the sound effects. This is really a fun game. I always seem to hit it at the same spot. Oh no.
Stroke limit. Now that you've reached the stroke limit, your score for this hole is final. The lost hole of Atlantis. The hole that answers the important question, is going under par, underwater, possible? I don't know.
This octopus is really cramping my style. My ball is now in Davy Jones' locker. Come on, I gotta get the ball in Atlantis. Oh, so it just puts us back at the beginning. That makes sense. Well, the wacky world of miniature golf was really a treat. I really enjoyed that, and I'm looking forward to playing the rest of the game if I can get the timing right. The animations are really fun and kind of funny. Eugene Levy's commentary is great. I think that they picked the right person for the game, and it's honestly a pretty good example of what you could do with the CDI system in general, which I have to say I'm pretty impressed with. There's a lot of critics that panned it as a bad video game system, but honestly, of the games I've seen so far, they were certainly not your big action platformers or anything, and they're a different take on things, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure I would have loved this as a kid. Obviously, the CDI didn't take off a long term, but I think it's a solid system and a really kind of unique piece of gaming and computer history. We're glad to have it here at the Vintage Geek Museum. As always, if you like what we're doing here, if you like vintage tech, game systems, computers, be sure to like and subscribe. It's going to help us a lot as we grow. Also, if you'd like a shirt like the one I'm wearing today, or a coffee mug or other souvenir, we've got a link down in the description for the merch store. Until next time, I'm Aaron, and this has been Vintage Geek.